Hey, what's up, cats and kittens? And shout out to all my Cerebralites. It's me, the Cerebral Diva. It is early in the morning, you guys. I'm just getting back from the gym. Still feeling exhausted. The weekend has just gotten started, but it's already been a pretty taxing weekend for me. So I spent last night, though, watching Caitlyn Jenner's interview on 2020 with Diane Sawyer, which was a pretty interesting interview. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about now. This interview picks up 2 years later from the last time Diane Sawyer interviewed Caitlyn Jenner pre-transition Caitlyn Jenner. And there were some very interesting things. Like we found out that Caitlyn Jenner is now post-operative. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term post-op, it means that she had the bottom surgery. So she is now completely, fully, and wholly female. So yeah, so Bruce went all the way. No half stepping. And congratulations on that. I mean, I think that that's a very powerful position or powerful step to take. If you feel like you're ready for that step, congratulations to her. And congratulations on having the means to do it, which is unfortunately not something that a lot of people have access to, which is why very many of the people who were sort of rallying behind Caitlyn have actually began to rebel against her. So one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting about the show I Am Kate was the juxtaposition of all of the girls who were on the show, from Candace Kane to Shandy to Marcy Bowers. Who else was on there? There were several people on there, and all of them were really trying to give Caitlyn the guidance and tutelage she needed to really integrate herself within the LGBT and, more importantly, the trans community. Now, Caitlyn, to me, watching the show, was still very much immersed in her white male of privilege. She didn't seem really ready to take the step to open up her mind and understand that she had access to certain privileges that a lot of people didn't have. Her celebrity, to a large degree, while it denied her anonymity, it also helped to sort of soften the blow of transitioning, because people saw her as a celebrity and not necessarily as a transgendered person. So very often on the show, people were trying to explain the nuances of what it meant to be transgender to Kate, but Kate just did not seem to connect the dots. There was a particular scene where I believe they were in Chicago on the show, and they happened to bump into Hillary Clinton at a hotel. I believe Hillary and Bill, if I'm not mistaken, at a hotel. And that meeting, that sort of haphazard meeting, if you will, wound up giving birth to a conversation about trans rights and that whole thing. And Caitlyn just did not seem to get it, which was frustrating to watch. Not just it's just hard to for it was difficult for me to understand why she wasn't understanding that. Look, you're not the person that you used to be, and while you do have access to certain privileges now, just because by virtue of being a sort of Jenner slash Kardashian slash Olympic athlete, you are definitely going to get privileges that the average transgender woman would not get. But you're also going to get scrutinized. And the same community that you're not fighting for is going to be the same community that stands up on your behalf. So this is an opportunity for you to engender yourself and foster a relationship within that community. But for whatever reason, Caitlyn, well, I shouldn't say for whatever reason. I think the reason is very clear. Caitlyn's grew up a white male of privilege. And so that's really colored her perception and viewpoint of the world. And so last night we saw her come, I don't want to say full circle, but sort of a soft semicircle, where she's sort of beginning to understand. I saw her mention something about trans women of color and the joblessness rate, the unemployment rate for trans women of color in particular, which I thought was a very enlightened position for her to take. You can tell that um, the the messaging is really starting to get through to her finally. They also showed a clip on of Caitlyn on Ellen's show where Ellen was quizzing her about gay marriage and what her position or stance was on that, and she was sort of tap dancing around that issue. And so we also saw a shift in that position as well. So, but it's really just a difficult thing for me to understand because I feel like at the very least when Caitlyn was coming out, if you don't know, then just don't speak. My mother always told me growing up that sometimes it's better to be silent and thought of as a fool rather than speak up and remove all doubt. And I think that Caitlyn's ignorance was it was in full bloom on the show I Am Kate. And I think it really did a disservice to her character within the trans or LGBT community because I think that there were a lot of people who were eager to embrace her, eager to have her as an advocate, but unfortunately, that was a gauntlet that she just wasn't ready to take on. So, on last night's episode, we see Diane asking Caitlyn some very poignant questions about where she is in her life, about dating and so on and so forth. And, she's saying that she hasn't been asked on a date. She doesn't know if dating is in her future, that she's very much dedicated to her children as a parent, which I thought was cool. But I also think that it's probably a very lonely place for her to operate from, not being able to find love and not being able to have someone, love you. Now, that is the gift and the curse of celebrity. Now, her celebrity gives her access to certain things that a lot of people don't have access to, but it's also going to deter a lot of men who don't want that scrutiny, who don't want that spotlight from dating her. Could you imagine being the first guy who decided to date Caitlyn Jenner and what that would look like for that man? I mean, the press is going to have a field day with that. A field day. But, I mean, that being said, a large part of the reason why Caitlyn is having difficulty finding love is connected to her ignorance. Because if you think the prejudice that exists in our society is something that Caitlyn has an opportunity to affect. To change minds is something that Caitlyn has an opportunity to affect. And by being reluctant to do so, she's sort of creating the climate that prevents men from wanting to date her, that makes men who might, in a society where, a more liberal society where people were able to be themselves, might feel comfortable saying, hey, I go out with Kate. But because we live in a society that's so prejudicial, and a lot of the prejudice that she helps to promulgate, she's actually sort of painting herself into a corner. And I don't even think that she has the awareness to realize that to a large degree she is her own worst enemy when it comes to finding love moving forward in her new gender, in her new body. So I hope that she has an epiphany at some point and realizes that, you know, the changes that people want her to make aren't necessarily changes just for the community. They're changes that are going to affect her quality of life as well. And until she understands that, then maybe the karma gods are denying her love because they don't feel like she's worthy of it right now. And not that I'm happy to see anyone without love, because ultimately, I would love to see her happy, love to see her find a significant other of some sort. And I do believe prior to this show, last night's show, she kept saying that she was open to both genders. But if memory serves me correctly, last night she specifically said that she was interested in men. So that's also been another shift that we saw take place. Let me see what else happened. We saw the kids. We saw Brody, who I have a huge crush on, from the Hills. Yeah, I mean, overall, I don't think that the interview as a whole was really groundbreaking. Oh, you know what's really interesting? Probably the most interesting part of the interview was the parts where Caitlyn wasn't featured. At one point, Diane Sawyer had a sort of a round table where she had the parents of trans kids sit down with the people who had aversions to trans kids being in schools and locker rooms and so on and so forth. And seeing the humanity expressed in that meeting, it's just like, why can't we as a society just be this on a regular basis? Why can't we be compassionate? Why can't we be empathetic? When this whole past election was happening, and we saw all of this sort of polarization between the left and the right, I kept saying I wish that they would create a reality show where Trump supporters were forced to live in the world of Hillary supporters, and where Hillary supporters were forced to live in the world of Trump supporters. And it's not about changing people's minds. It's really about having people understand that sometimes people have a right to feel that way. And because we all get so immersed in our own bubbles, our own day to day existence, we really lose sight of the broader picture. And we stop understanding that just because we feel something doesn't make it so. Other people have different experiences, other people have different beliefs. But the thing that we all have to understand is, how do we find commonality? How do we all find a space where we all can coexist in a way that's respectful to what everyone believes? And this roundtable with these parents last night was so powerful, because you saw parents who were struggling with allowing their kids to be themselves in a world that is hostile, in a world that's unforgiving, in a world that's unkind, and cruel. And these parents now in 2017, fortunately, they have a support network that didn't exist 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And we're seeing these trans kids have an opportunity to live healthy lives where they get to grow up with parents and families, and in sometimes communities that support them from the ground up, which I think is fantastic. This is how you create healthy, well-adjusted human beings who are going to do great things in this world. And so this round table with these parents, at one point, one woman who was adamantly against trans kids using public facilities in schools, she asked one of the mothers of trans kids, of the trans children, she said, well, how can I help? What can I do? And it was hard for my eyes not to tear up in that moment, because I'm thinking, wow, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. How can I help? What can I do? The bottom line is, if you're a person who doesn't believe in transsexualism, what have you, I personally feel you have every right to not believe in that. No one can tell you, you need to believe in this, you need to support this. If you don't believe in it, that's fine. That's the space that you exist in. But everyone needs to at some point understand that trans kids have a right to exist in the space that they exist in too. And since we all share spaces, we have to figure out how to make everyone comfortable. And no one's trying to make these girls or boys or whomever who have to share facilities with these trans kids feel uncomfortable. And I do understand the aspect of modesty, but we live in a day and age where kids play these video games where they're, shooting and killing, and they're stealing cars on Grand Theft Auto, and they're running people over, and people don't see anything wrong with that. But people have such an issue, even in the day and age of mass shootings and all of the things, texting and driving and drinking and driving, all of these things that really hurt and cause carnage, in the adolescent community. People seem so less focused on that, and they're afraid of this boogeyman within the trans community that is really just a figment of their imagination. At the end of the day, changing clothes in the bathroom shouldn't be sexualized. That's part of the problem, is that adults put this sort of sexual component on kids using the bathroom when it's not about sex. It's really just about changing clothes and going on about your business. Excuse me. I apologize, you guys, too. My voice is really raspy because I just woke up. Um, so I just wish that people would understand that, You have a right to believe what you want to believe, but what you don't have a right to is to affect someone else's right to be happy, someone else's right to have peace. No one gets 100% of what they want. We all have to learn to share, and we all have to learn to compromise, and that means give and take on all sides and finding the happy medium where we all can coexist. So yeah, so that was the Caitlyn Jenner interview. If you haven't checked it out, I was gonna post a clip of it, but YouTube has me so scared of flagging accounts and what have you that I don't even bother, because I don't need any alerts, any flags on my account. So it's on ABC. If you go to abcnews.com, I'm sure you can find it there. Yeah, leave your comments below. I'm really curious to know what you guys have to say and what you think about this whole HB2 transgendered bathroom bill out of North Carolina, and just trans people in general being able to use the bathroom of their choice or the bathroom that they identify with. Um, what else? Remember to like, comment, subscribe, dislike if you choose. Doesn't make me a difference either way. Um, Follow me across all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I'm Cerebral Diva on all platforms. Spell Justice is Spoken. If you can spell, you can find me. Yeah, and as always, in closing, remember to live better, love harder, think smarter, and be kinder. It's me, the Cerebral Diva, and I will talk to you guys again soon.